I bought a present for my 3D resin printer, a cozy printer enclosure. I picked this up off of Amazon and I'll leave a link below. It met my needs in terms of size, price, and features. It comes in this compact box that's quite heavy for its size. There's a bunch of connectors, and then the rolled up cover with instruction sheet, and a whole lot of poles in 3 different lengths. I might as well read the instructions. Despite those, I still made a mistake, which you'll see later. First step is to connect 2 poles together with these straight connectors. I found this to be a bit difficult as the fit is quite tight, and I had read on a few Amazon reviews that people broke the poles or connectors, so I was careful not to do that. Next step was to add the corner connectors. Again, these were a tight fit, and as you'll see later, I didn't get the pipes fully into some of the connectors. Now the instructions only showed the number 1 poles as being joined together, but I realized the other poles also have to be joined together in pairs. So while I do this, here are the reasons for buying this enclosure in the first place. I have my 3D printer in my unheated garage, as I don't want the smell and mess of the resin in the house. However, resin printing needs warm temperatures, so the resin can flow better. With the enclosure, it will be easier to add heat around the printer. Also, the enclosure will cut down on noise, although that's not a big issue in the garage. And it will protect the printer from dust and dirt, as I also use my garage as my wood shop. Some hobbyists buy a large grow tent used for growing veggies indoors, among other plants. I was looking into that too, but I couldn't find the right size of tent that would fit my space. As you'll see later, this enclosure fits perfectly in the space where I currently have my printer. And here is where I realized I screwed up. Seems like I've mixed up the lengths of pipe and used the wrong lengths for the 2 rectangles. So I had to pull out the poles, which was difficult as they were really stuck in the connectors well, and then I put them back together the right way. Back of the instruction sheet just has some instructions for another feature of this enclosure, so we'll get to that in a bit. Now it's time to unfold the cover and put the frame inside. This was a bit tricky to do with just myself. So thankfully my daughter came down to see why I was making a noise, and she helped a bit. I discovered though that some of the pipes were not seated all the way into the connectors, so I had to push a few of them further in. And then finally the cover fit. And my daughter came back from looking at my model car collection to inspect the final result. Then it was just a matter of zipping the cover closed. I like how the cover opens up at the top as well. I think this is more useful for an FDM filament printer, but at least I'll have the flexibility when I one day get an FDM printer and want to use this cover with it. So one feature the printer came with is this LED light bar. It has some clips that I clipped onto the back of the light. And then that clipped to the front top pipe. At first I thought it would be smart to have the cable go to the back and then down to the cord grommet, but you'll see how I change that later. It's USB powered, so I plugged it into a USB charging brick, plugged into an extension cord. It's nice and bright, and you can angle it to adjust the light. The enclosure has a pocket on the side for tools and a small flap on the other side, which I'm not really sure what to use it for. Actually, I did find a use for it once it was in the garage. So in the garage, I took away the temporary enclosure I made from the shipping box of my printer. It worked somehow, but wasn't ideal. I then moved the printer and my resin bottles away. I also had to take down the garbage bag holder you see here. Luckily, my airbrush holder can stay. And here's the big enclosure. Let's see if I measured it right. Yes, it fits perfectly between the door frame and electrical outlet on the other side, as well as it fits with some room to spare under my electrical sub-panel. Except now that I look at it, that USB cord from the LED light is not going to work like that. So what I did was route the cable from the light down the front of the enclosure using some twist ties to hold it onto the pipe, and then I used that small flap on the side to run the cable out to my outlet. This enclosure is great. There's plenty of room above the printer to remove the hood after a print job is done, and there is some space to the right of the printer and lots of space in front for when I need to remove the vat. This is also where I put a small heater to heat up the chamber before printing. With the enclosure all zipped up, I can still see the LCD screen on the printer to keep track of printing progress. I just hope these wrinkles eventually smooth out a bit on the window. Overall, I'm very happy with this addition to my 3D printing setup. Thanks for watching.